Hey, Billy, you know what's awesome?
What's that, man?
Red frickin' Dawn.
Yes, yes, it is. You know, as horror fans, we kind of dog on the whole concept of the PG-13 movie.
Yeah,
Red Dawn was the first PG-13 movie that was released in the United States, and for good reason.
yeah,
Should have probably been a rated R.
yeah,
This is pretty rough movie.
yeah.
But so I guess last week or the week before last, we talked about weird science and Ferris Bueller and these coming of age high school movies, and then we talked about our own experience in high school. You know what I never had to deal with?
Parachuting
Soviet.
Cubans?
I was gonna say, yeah, parachuting Cubans shooting up the school. God, that's a rough scene, dude.
Man, I mean, just from the get go, man, this movie, it just hits you over the head right from the very beginning, and it doesn't let up.
No, and it doesn't get better. Like they have their
No.
little victories, but they're still starving.
Yeah,
They're still cold, and like it's and because you never think for a minute that they're actually going to defeat. Like they're never going
yeah.
to win World War III by themselves. They're just trying to,
Survive.
you take some revenge while they're surviving. But yeah, dude. So Red Dawn came out in '84, so I'd have been like 9, 10 years old whenever I first saw it on video. Because of course my parents weren't going to take me to the theater to see that one.
Yeah,
Um, of course my mom was probably like, "Ooh, we should watch this because it's got
yeah,
Charlie Sheen and Patrick Swayze and Leah Thompson. C. Thomas Howell was huge back then.
yeah.
Um, and it's got Powers Booth, who was
Powers
pretty.
Booth, man.
He was a powerhouse dude
Yeah, he is.
back in the '80s as well. And I don't honestly, dude, I don't think anybody really kind of knew what was about to hit them
Mm-mm.
because it is a bleak, bloody, and violent movie
Yeah,
with all kinds of crazy moral uh,
yeah,
conundrums that come up to a whole bunch of little kids, essentially, like teenagers. If they're in high school, and none of them, like, only one of them's like out of high school. The rest
right.
of them are little kids.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. And
oof.
it's amazing because it's exactly what you're talking about. You're taking the Brat Pack style movies, which were the biggest thing going at this time, and you're advertising this list of stars that are obviously teen superstars at this point, and you're putting them in this movie that you know could be a Rambo flick,
Mm-hmm.
but it's even a little darker than that, man, because holy crap, when they're out there in the wilderness and they sneak back in and they see their parents that are quarantined at the drive-in, and
Mm-hmm.
being held captive, and it's just like holy smokes, man. And and of course, I mean, this is the height of the Cold War. This is where we're all going to just blow each other up. That's going to be the end of civilization. That's just what we're going to accept. I mean, you had countless TV shows about that already. But
Mm-hmm.
here's like something that even's like something nobody ever thinks of, which there's a series of movies that come past this, but actually invading the U.S. and it not being a
Right.
Martian in spaceships. These other countries that see us as weak and come
Mm-hmm.
over and just take over the whole country. Matter of fact, you listen to Powers Booth in the movie, they've taken over pretty much the whole world.
Yeah. And that, I mean, the chilling in that speech, so chilling. Where, like, I don't remember. He explains how the Chinese became allied with
Yeah,
the United States, but they were the last ones standing.
yeah,
And he's like, nothing's standing between them, and except for 100 million screaming Chinamen. And they're like, I thought there was a billion. And he
yeah,
like throws his whiskey or his booze into the fire, and
yeah.
it's just like,
He says,
oh man,
there was.
yeah. I mean, he doesn't have to say any words. He
Right.
just,
Yeah.
but yeah, man, um, I mean, it'll end up in a play-by-play, but just certain scenes. I mean, like I said, we're horror fans, so there's probably the the machete in the head, the axe,
Yeah.
the even cowboy movies, and if you look at I don't know if you ever seen the slug of a 45 caliber or 44 caliber pistol, but you think about a ball of lead swinging at your head like in that, you
Yeah.
know. So it's like there's a lot of stuff, especially being 80s kids. We've been exposed to a lot of death and violence, but in Red Dawn, it was so. Again, it was so real.
Yeah.
I mean, when they strafe that school and everybody manages to get out of the classroom except for that one kid that's still leaning against the wall.
Right.
It's like, why would you strafe a school? Why would you shoot down a teacher? And it was a shock and awe. That's what it was.
Yeah.
That's their tactic, is to just subdue everybody real fast.
Yep.
And which didn't make sense when I was 9, but then you see it in real life, and a couple decades later when they're just like, oh yeah, we just go in and just take down hard.
Yeah.
Subdue everybody real fast. You're like, oh, that's the real thing.
That was the unthinkable at the time, and like you said, life imitates art, right? Or art imitates life, whichever way you want to take it. And yeah, I mean, it's well, even in what's going on now in the streets and stuff. I mean, another country could look at this and go, man, they are totally unsuspecting of anything.
Oh yeah, they're sideways.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah. I'm sure that all those calculations have been run.
Yeah. And this is 1984. This is born in the USA time, right? So this is when we were at our proudest of being American, and that's when they hit. And of course, you get a little caption at the beginning about everything that's happening around the world, and how it all plays into the story. But yeah, man, I mean, it's the worst nightmare, because that's just the unthinkable.
Yeah. Well, and then you have Patrick Swayze's Jed, who's the older brother who's just dropped his kid. He's like dropped his brother off at school and is driving away and sees all of the crap happen. He sees everything happen in his rearview mirror, so he turns around and goes back to get his brother, and then all of it. Whoever's not getting shot down in the parking lot just hops in the back of his truck.
Yeah.
And he burns out, hits a couple of roadblocks on the way.
Yeah.
And manages to escape. Home basically.
Yeah.
And like, what do we do? Like, run into the woods. Just go.
Yeah.
Just get out of here, because obviously this is not a good thing. It's funny because the only thing, because I've read today, you said you were able to run back through the movie. I didn't get a chance to do that, but I did scroll through some reviews and some kind of trivia sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, it's like the people were critical of the writer and the director for being too pro-America. I was like, it didn't seem like it to me. It's like, this seems like if you're pro-Apollo, whenever Drago's beating him down, you're like, well, it seems like you were pretty pro-Apollo. It's like, well, I don't know how it could be like he killed him.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. But my only criticism is how they got that far in without anybody really knowing. Like Colorado, like they would have, except for apparently they launched from like New Mexico.
Yeah.
They were already that far up, but to be completely unexpected was a little bit of a stretch. But other than that, everything in this movie is like hyper realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
And I think especially with all of these, I mean, a lot of these guys, obviously Patrick Swayze and Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen, did serious, but also did comedy. Patrick Swayze, mostly serious with a little comedy. Leah Thompson with Back to the Future. I mean, these guys were about to explode and just be, superstars.
Jennifer Grey, man. I mean, I'm not a fan of Jennifer Grey, but between Ferris Bueller and, come on, you got Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey in the same movie here before Dirty Dancing. So, this is the pot that's getting stirred up, about to unleash a whole bunch of big stuff on you.
Well, I was going to say, I think this is most of their best dramatic performances, because they were playing scared kids, and then they were playing angry kids.
Yep.
And and I fudged his name in Weird Science, or not in Weird Science, but in talking about Snake Plissken. But Harry Dean Stanton
Harry Dean Stanton,
was
yeah.
playing
Jeb's dad, yeah.
Jed and Matt's dad, and he's avenge me because
Yeah.
he knows he's gonna get killed because his kids are missing, and so like if it's not gonna turn over information on them or whatever,
Yeah.
and it's just got this perfect '80s cast. I mean, you can't. It's one of those things like you can't get any more '80s than certain movies, and like this is one of them.
Yeah.
Because it's the height of the Cold War. It's not really even hyper political as much as here's a scenario. It's kind of like Jaws. Like,
right.
What happens when the killer shark starts eating people? Well, you get a boat. Like, this is what we do.
Yeah.
And so they get out there and they start hunkering down with hunting rifles, and ultimately they up their gear.
Yeah, when they start, picking, soldiers off here and there and start building their arsenal, which is one thing that's interesting because I'm like, how would a, 15, 16-year-old now know how to launch an RPG,
True.
I mean, because you don't have instructions with it, you don't have the internet to look it up. You've just got this thing that you found and now you know how to shoot it. So between that and, going and blowing up buildings and, with the backpack and all that kind of stuff or whatever she does when she goes into town and blows up the place, I'm like, yeah, how do they know to set a timer on the bomb or, who knows? Who cares?
I'm sure
Who cares?
I'm sure they figured it out. Or they beat it out of somebody because, and that one dude sitting in that truck, that's whenever Jed makes his decision. All the rest of the guys are still on the fence.
C. Thomas Howell, though, man, you talking about the character arc, man?
Oh yeah,
yikes!
Yeah, he goes from a whiny, scared kid to a cold-blooded killer.
Yeah,
well, I mean, they killed his dad right at the beginning, and he sees his friends die. He sees them getting betrayed. It's like everybody else's parents are like, we're not going back. Like they're not going to just come in and sweep this up, and we're going to just go back home. Like this is not happening. So.
Yeah, man. I mean, he's got his little Star Wars cap on with the bill turned up, and he's just Mr. Hey, what are we doing now? And man, after he shoots the deer, and you get that kind of ceremonial thing, which I remember seeing that for the first time. I'm like, really?
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna do this right now? But yeah, so I mean, just the strength that he goes to, he becomes just cold-hearted killing machine, man.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he doesn't like when Jed can't take out what was his name?
Yeah, the
Daryl.
The one that was
the mayor's son.
Right.
It wasn't really his fault. They forced him to swallow the thing.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, he's like, boom. It's like,
yeah.
Everybody look at him like, like, I can't believe you just did that. He's like, well, I did.
Yeah.
It's time to go.
That was highly traumatic, man, as a kid, because I was 14 when this came out. So I'm right there with the Savage boy. Ben, is it Ben Savage? One of the Savage boys that plays
Fred.
It's not Fred. It's his older brother.
No. Yeah, I know. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the one that actually is still alive at the end of the movie, I guess. But he's one of the Savage brothers, and
right.
So he's 15 in the movie supposedly, So I'm right there at that age of going, holy crap! Couldn't imagine having to run off with these guys that are older than me and trust them to keep me alive.
Right. Well, and that's what's again one of those things that you don't think of. It's the thing behind the thing. Like they never had a chance to do anything. They hopped in the back of a truck that rode down a road and just ended up where they ended up.
Yeah.
And you think about being your age and like they start crying and stuff and like what you can't. I mean, Jed's like the oldest one, but he's only older by like a year, so he's not like super.
Yeah. It's like going with
It,
your older cousins and stuff, and they're the ones in charge of you. I mean, that's kind
mm-hmm.
of what you got here, and they're only a couple of years older, and this is your leader, and
Yeah.
so yeah, you get all the confrontation between the mayor's son, like you said, because he's wanting to give up, turn everybody in, and of course, Jed and them are like, no, we're not doing that, and they finally,
Well, they also know what they know. They also know how it's going to end.
yes,
So like you can
yeah,
walk down the hill and get shot against a wall,
yeah,
or you can stay up
yeah,
here and take some with you.
yeah,
And ultimately, everybody gets tired.
yeah,
It's like we don't necessarily need to go play by play of the whole movie, but like
right,
even Robert. It's one of the more funny scenes in the movie, but like whenever they're being attacked by the big giant battleship helicopter,
yeah,
and he's got a perfect shot, and instead of blowing up the chopper, he ends up taking out the gunner.
yeah.
You know, um, did he do that on purpose? Not necessarily, probably not. But then he realizes that he's
He's done.
he's
He's
caught.
spent. Yeah.
Yeah, and he just he just takes that.
Stands there with that machine gun and just shoots at a giant helicopter that's coming right
Yep.
at him. Yeah, yeah, and that's that thing of you've kind of hit that wall. It's over. Yeah, I mean, and there's so many of those, man. I mean, even Jennifer Grey, after she got shot by the same helicopter,
Mm-hmm.
and she gets the grenade. And at first, she wants Patrick Swayze to shoot her and go ahead and end everything, and he can't do it. So she wants a hand grenade, so
Yeah,
she
so
can
she
do
can
it
booby trap
herself.
herself.
Yeah, it's just like holy crap, man! It's such a dark movie, but
It
it's
is.
so good.
Well, and then when Leah Thompson finds Andy,
Yeah,
she's like got the gun in his face. She's like, "What's the capital of Texas?"
right.
He's like, "Austin." She's like, "No, it's not. Houston or Dallas or whatever." And he's just like, "Oh crap, I'm about to die." Like,
Yeah, man. Yeah, how do you make this movie better? You bring in Powers Booth, man, and I'm a fan of Powers Booth, man. Goes all the way back to him being Jim Jones, and the
hmm
movie of that stuff, and yeah, I just anything he's in, I'm sold. So he was
yeah,
perfect for that role.
he's a good. He was. I always thought he was a great actor. He was always such a good bad guy.
Yeah,
But even when he was a good guy, he was still kind of a bad guy.
yeah.
You've seen Frailty, I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
With
good.
and he's the cop that's interrogating him the whole time, and then like whenever they flash him back and he's got the red eyes, and it's like oh, like that's Powers Booth right there.
Yeah,
He's got that streak of
that's
dark
right.
in him, even when he's a good guy.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, he's then they get on those tanks again.
yeah,
It's like it's one of those like you'd want to expect, you'd want to hope, because obviously the resistance that you're putting on, even though it is just a bunch of kids blowing crap up to be like again, they know they're not going to win.
yeah,
Like they're just trying to stay alive long enough to let the military win or the governments win or take a few out while they go down. But you would hope that eventually somebody would come in and swell your ranks. Like you'd
right,
have some kids from, the next school over that also escaped. They were like, hey,
right.
you know, can we join your gang? That sort of a thing. But that never happens.
Yeah.
And it just like as they continue to fall, their numbers get smaller and smaller. And
Well, they talk about the Green Berets, coming and supporting them because they're talking to the old guy that had, his granddaughters locked up in the basement or whatever, which I
mhm.
thought, okay, that's kind of a weird thing, but okay. But yeah, I mean, he even mentions that, his, Patrick Swayze's, name is getting put out there and he's getting to be some sort of legend.
Uh-huh.
And they're talking about sending support. Of course, that would be ultimately what they would hope for, and of course, it never happens. And
Yeah. But then every day you're just waking up hoping that maybe you'll
Yeah.
hear
Yeah.
hear
Well,
something other than the
they said it's going to be in the spring, right? And he's like, spring's a long way off. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah, man. They
Well,
go out there and it's I guess in the fall, and they're out there from the fall. They go through all the way through the winter, and just survive. You know.
and into the spring, like start towards the end of winter they start.
Yeah.
That's whenever basically the movie ends. But man, think about okay, so the guy who wrote it, Kevin Reynolds, he also wrote Robin Hood,
Huh.
Prince of Thieves with Kevin Costner,
Wow.
and Waterworld. Like,
Man.
yeah, it's like crazy. And he also wrote Amazing Stories. Remember Amazing
Oh yeah.
Stories?
Yeah.
With, from Steven Spielberg.
Yeah. I've got the box set.
So I mean, he went from like super dark to like.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Waterworld's not too light, but it's a whole lot lighter than Red Dawn, for sure.
I'll be honest, I don't know what Waterworld really is.
Have you never seen Waterworld?
I mean, I've seen it, but just far as
It's a brooding Kevin Costner on a catamaran for like 6 hours.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, yeah,
Like, I remember when it first came out, they're like, "This is the biggest bomb that's ever bombed," and I was like, "I could tell you why."
yeah.
Exhibit A.
Just read the synopsis. It pretty much tells you right there in the print.
Pissed off Kevin Costner just sits on a boat.
Yep, that's it.
And then the director, John Milius, this is a little bit more kind of close to the kind of like he did Dirty Harry, Apocalypse Now, Conan the Barbarian.
Yep.
He did on Jaws, and then he had a bit of a hand in writing used cars.
Yeah.
Like, he kind of changed like.
It changed direction, but it didn't short yourselves on the greatness though, man. Because used cars is fantastic, man.
Well, I'm gonna pause real quick so we can play this trailer because I want to talk more about this movie, but
Okay.
we got to leave it in there.
What's going on here, my friend?
This is the emergency broadcast system. We are under attack by conventional forces of the Russian army. It is believed the lead waves were disguised as commercial charter flights. Communications have broken down with other parts of the country. Large areas of the Midwest may have been overrun.
They know who all of you are. They're looking for you.
You're 40 miles behind enemy lines.
I just want to go home.
They took a lot of people away.
Where's my dad, Mr. Eckert?
One of us loves somebody, Andy. I'm gonna die before it happens.
George?
They're gonna kill us. All of us.
So why should we be different?
Because we live here.
Not bad for a bunch of kids, huh?
Mama'd be real proud.
So like I said, man, when this came out, when I first saw it, horrified.
Yeah.
Like I never had nothing that kept me awake thinking, like I was certain by the time I grew up that we would be Russian red. Like, and not the way we are now with people rioting in the streets that are still the only reason they're allowed to do that is because the government ain't stomping down on them.
Yeah.
But I'm talking like invasion style.
Right.
Like I thought, man, and then I thought, okay, well, here's the problem. In order for them to get to California, they need to come up, through the southern border.
Yep.
And I'm in Corpus, and we've got a naval base here. I'm like, we're so this will end for me real fast. Big flash of light.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Just strategically, I won't even be playing in this game. Like but in case I survive, I need to up my Boy Scout game.
Yep.
But literally, like learning, like thinking in terms of learning skills, like Boy Scout campfire stuff and woodcraft that I'm going to need, not in case someday, but when these guys come, I need to be ready. And I mean, that's a heavy head case for a 9-year-old, man.
Yeah.
But man, like we watched Red Dawn. I don't know why, because it's kind of, maybe it's just that train wreck thing where it's like Friday the 13th where you just can't look away.
Yeah.
But God, we used to watch Red Dawn and like Karate Kid, and then we just go out and like put on our camo pants and just shoot at imaginary Russians.
Yeah.
And
well, it's the thing, you identified with these kids. This was Americana. This was kids going to school wearing their, sports jackets, the school jackets, and just doing their thing, man. And the world gets turned upside down, and you relate to that, and you start thinking those kind of things, and that's exactly why the movie was such a hit. It's the same thing with what was it, The Day After, which was the big nuclear fallout movie that they put on TV, because you were actually starting to put things together of, it's not just a big flash of light and everything's over. There's more to it than that, and that's kind of, this was even beyond that, because this was like, hey, not only do you get flashes of lights in certain places and devastation, but you got people coming over and just taking everything, and what it does to your family, right? That's the horrifying thing. When they're standing up there on that ledge and they're watching their parents being shot, execution style or whatever, firing squad. Horrifying. Horrifying.
And you can't do anything.
Yeah.
If you make a sound, they're going to just turn around and shoot you down.
Yep.
Again, the re-education camp that they're in, on, like, they're talking, with the vocals coming through the microphone and like the little screen, on the drive-through, like, or on the drive-in. It's an effect, but I mean, that's another thing too, is they're using your Americana against you here.
Yep.
And even the touring Russians, like the Russian soldiers, where they're like up in the park and they find the arrowhead or the arrow or whatever, and they're like, oh, look at this, and they're touring, they're taking pictures of stuff, like they're an occupied country, but just same as like GIs will send pictures back home from whenever they were in Vietnam or whenever they were in Iraq or whatever. It's like, oh, hey, look, here's the here's the ruins of such and such. I was there. And it's like, that's what these guys are doing, and of course they get taken out. But even that's another thing that's scary, is because it's not even specifically so one-sided. It shows the humanity of the bad guys too.
Absolutely.
And which is weird, because Rambo doesn't do that.
Right.
Missing in action does not do that.
Right. This totally plays on, these people are just as human as they are. They've got family back home. They're here doing a job. You know.
Which makes it all the worse.
It does.
Because if they were just straight up evil, then
you don't care.
But
and that's the conflict, and I think it's kind of where you're heading with this, because you start seeing that conflict with our teens in this movie as well, because they're starting to realize this. Look at the difficulty they had of when they do catch the guy, right, and they're about to execute him and the mayor's son. I mean, not only does he have a problem with shooting, his friend, but he has a problem shooting the other guy too, because you're taking a life here,
But then Robert just
he's
just like,
he could care less.
When the dude falls against him and just kind of slides down,
and
he's got that white camo,
the blood all over it.
He just kind of steps back and kind of kicks him to the side, and he's just like, like, well,
that's that.
And you wonder, of all, because it's certainly lots of personality types. So you have kind of the reluctant but capable leader. You got his younger brother, who's kind of the second in command. You've got the whiny mayor's son, who's you know, led a life of privilege, and his whole he wants to negotiate. Hey, there's got to be a way out of this. We've got to. We should be able. But that's the life he's known. That's not because of a character flaw. That's just who he's been raised to be.
Look at his dad in the movie. The dad's the same way. I mean, he's in there with the leaders from these other countries and trying to negotiate and save his own butt.
Yeah.
And that's exactly who his son is too, for the most part.
And then, you know, again with Robert, you know, but they killed his dad right off.
Yeah.
That's whenever he's like looking for news. He's like, "What about my dad?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Nope."
He's
like,
gone.
First wave.
Yeah.
Because he gave you these weapons.
Yep.
Like that's, and he explains that too, because that's in the like opening scene. He's like, go down to the sporting goods store and pull the reports, and so then they give him all the guns, and they realize he's got missing inventory, so he's, you know, so they kill him, and you know, so Robert's like, okay, well now I've got that guilt because I'm up here holding on to these stolen weapons that got my dad killed, which of course, you know, what you gonna do, but still, that's why, you know, the character arcs, especially like of the girls, when you first see them, they're cowering in the basement.
Well, they get tough, man.
They do, and you know, because Leah Thompson's character is one of the two that survive, you know, and she's not going to have it either. I mean, one of the most awesome scenes. Well, that was Jennifer Grey when she rides her bike up. Like that's when she gives the bomb. And she rides her bike up, and they're like, "Hey," and she's like, "Hey," and then she like runs off. And just, but whenever they start striking back, and the music starts, and again, you're not supposed to, you know. I guess it's kind of like America porn, where you're just like, but whenever, you know, they're running and the guys are chasing them, and they get past the line and they pop up out of the little things.
Oh yeah,
and just mow them down.
Yeah,
you know, like
yeah,
when they're about to execute a bunch of civilians and they're ready, aim, fire, and just mow down the executioners.
Well, they start planning ahead and trying to be at places beforehand, and I don't know if that's because of radio, you know, connections or what, but you know, they even wake up Powers Booth and say, "Hey, wake up! Early bird gets the worm." You know, they already know a place that they're going to go and set up for this attack, and so you know, they go from what do we do to actually having specific targets. You know, and you've got to love the whole thing about the Wolverine, right? I mean, who doesn't want to go Wolverines, right? I mean,
of course,
that's just as much as, you know, Judd Nelson doing his arm at the end of Breakfast Club, right? it's that thing, you know, and
it's ironically similar too.
Yeah. So, I mean, it did something to you to make you think. First, it makes you question yourself. What would I do in all this? And the second, it makes you believe that it is possible that you could do something for yourself, even if you don't win.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where's that line? You know? Yeah. It's a powerful flick, man.
It really is. I mean, I think it's held up so well. That's why everybody was so pissed off whenever the remake came out.
Yeah.
Because that's one of those that, like, you can say, oh, you don't make that, whatever, but the second one, the remake didn't even respect the source material, and that was what was so weird about it. It was like, it was a bad idea from the get go that I think just had money behind it and kind of got greenlit, but it didn't, like, it wasn't.
Well, you got the hottest guy going in movies at the time, and you want to find him an action flick. So hey, let's make him an action flick, and hey, here's an old one that if we said the name of it, people would instantly go see it. It's kind of how I feel about the newest Child's Play movie that they did.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't dislike it. I think the only problem is they called it Child's Play because it was actually pretty good, but they used that to get people to go see it. But the story was strong enough on its own, and I think that's exactly what they tried to do with the Red Dawn thing. And you know, if you called it something totally different, it probably would have been a bigger hit. I hate to say it that way because, you know, it's Red Dawn, man. You know,
I think sometimes, you know, if you just write a different story, then I remember that episode of The Simpsons where it's showing them up in the TV stations or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, we need some fresh ideas. Everybody turn on your TVs," and they all like turn on their little portable TVs and sitting there watching to see what's on so they can write.
Yeah,
like, that's how they get fresh ideas. Is to see
right.
what's on.
See what's on. Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of where we're at because that's the trend right now. I don't know if it's a salute to how awesome stuff was in the 80s, because it just seems like all we're doing is remaking all the 80s movies.
I think it was. Also, from having gone back and rewatched some of these things, especially like, Weird Science, Ferris Bueller, Escape from New York, that kind of stuff, I think what you've got now is you have got a whole lot of studio meddling.
Yeah.
Whereas John Hughes wrote a John Hughes movie.
Right.
Right? He might have had, I'm sure he did have some studio oversight that was like, whoa. You can't have 3 sex scenes in one movie. You need to dial one back, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately it was his vision, it was his art, and it was his voice, and you can tell his signature on a film.
Yep.
Where it's like with Star Wars, for example, like The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi sucked ass, but Rian Johnson's actually a pretty good director.
He is.
But I'm sure it was very hard directing a big green screen room with a whole bunch of studio executives looking over your shoulder and being like, "Do you really need it to be that orange?" You know what I mean? It's like, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna sit down in committee. Here's some extra writers, and we're gonna throw in some new scenes today. And he's just like, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think, because who was it? Makeup artist, one of the best makeup artists ever.
Rick Baker.
Greg Nicotero. Rick Baker. Rick Baker was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was pissed. Like, Hollywood made him retire. He just said, he threw up his hands and he says, "I just give up." Now, Rick Baker has created so many of the everythings that are just so awesome. But he said they were working on that Wolfman with Benicio del Toro.
Yep. And
he said that it was like, it was working in committee all the time. Like, can you make the nose longer? Can you make the nose shorter? Can you make the nose pointed more? Can you, and he's like, I don't know what you want from me. Like, I thought you brought me in because I'm Rick Baker and you tell me you need a werewolf and I can make one.
Yeah.
Like
werewolves is what I do.
Right. Like, I'm famous.
See this Academy Award? It's because of the freaking werewolf I built.
But he said he just got driven nuts by, like, he's like, this stuff takes time, it takes effort, it takes, chemicals, like, and they just won't let you do what you need to do. So I quit. He's like, I'm old enough, I made enough money, I'm out.
Well, yeah, they ended up going back and doing so much CGI stuff on that anyways that I had high hopes for it, but I really did not care for it. And I was so stoked too, man, because Rick Baker,
Yep, absolutely.
And it just, I don't know, kind of fell flat for me. But anyways, it's no Red Dawn.
No. Well, I was going to say, though, because Kevin Reynolds wrote the story. Yeah. And I'm sure it was adapted, and he had people help him. And they, it's like, this is the way these things get written.
Yeah.
But it's a straightforward vision of, okay, we're going to start here, we're going to go to here, and this is what we're going to do, and this is what it means, and these are the stage directions. He didn't, like, look at a movie's credit roll now and look at how many people are involved in the writing process, and you're just like, okay, well, perhaps you could have cut a few of those guys out,
right,
and had a better movie.
Yeah.
So that's all I meant by that, because the remake was trash.
Yeah.
It was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, like I said, if they would have just made it its own thing, called it something different, then fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was I had problems with Hemsworth there for a while because Cabin in the Woods did the same thing to me, right? I mean, I saw the cover and I was like, okay, Cabin in the Woods, Evil Dead, and then it starts going and I'm like, this is freaking Evil Dead. Everything about it is Evil Dead. And then later on, you kind of figure out what's going on. I'm like, okay, fine, that's fine. So I get it. But You know.
See, I like Cabin in the Woods because I thought it was kind of a fresh take on things because it is hard.
Yeah.
To, you know, when you have a cabin in the woods, then you've got Evil Dead or you've got a slasher or you know, it's like serial killer hiding is, you know, it's like there's only so many things that can be going on in a cabin in the woods, but whenever you turn it into like a big Lovecraftian human sacrifice thing, like that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah,
you know,
when you get to the backside of it and what is all going on, they're basically pulling from all the great horror movies. I mean, because there's even the Pinhead guy and all that stuff. So yeah, I mean that's all right. But yeah, the other one was when Red Dawn came out, and I was like, we went to theater and saw it, and I was just like, yeah, you know, it's okay, but it's not the '80s version by any means.
No, not at all.
It'd be the same way as they try to make another Rambo movie, like without Stallone, like try to reboot.
Kid Rambo.
Yeah, I mean, some things were just meant to be in the time that they came out in, and that's the problem with remaking Jaws. I don't know that you're going to capture what makes that movie so special, and it's a prime example of this one right here. There's so many elements that you would leave out when you remake something like this because you're thinking spectacle. You know, you're not thinking about the decision of killing one of your best friends because he ended up being a spy, and you know the heartbreak you're having with the rest of your team over something like that. You know, you miss all those factors. So yeah, man, it's a heavy flick. There's 3 flicks I can think of from the '80s that are teen type movies that are just devastating, and this is definitely one of them. Red Dawn, Last American Virgin. I don't know if you ever watched that or not, but
I have not seen that.
Oh my gosh, man! It is such a Fast Times at Ridgemont High type flick till you get to the end of it, and the end of it you're just like, holy crap!
Oh no,
this is depressing. And then you had not Less Than Zero, but what was the one where Robert Downey Jr. was real bad druggy and all that stuff? It was like
Less Than Zero.
Maybe it was Less Than Zero. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I mean, it's like taking the Brat Pack and just totally destroying them, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, those 3 flicks right there, man, and they're powerhouse flicks, all 3 of them. But you know, you just walk away going, man, that, you know, this is not a feel good for movie, but you keep kind of wanting to go back and watch them again, you know.
Well, and that's what's weird too, is like some of these movies that were like, oh, it's, you know, I know it was not necessarily a comedy, but like, oh, certain dramas, like it's like St. Elmo's Fire. St. Elmo's Fire is depressing as hell. You get all these college kids that are on top of the world, and they get out in the real world, and the world don't like them.
Right.
But it's just scene after scene after scene of failure, and you're just like, why was this popular?
Yeah.
This.
Because of the cool theme song, man.
Of course. I mean, that song's awesome. But no, it's like, it's not Red Dawn where they're killing each other, but it's pretty damn sad.
Yeah.
But not when it's my not my favorite Demi Moore movie. One Crazy Summer would be, but and she's out there just like contemplating suicide because her credit cards got declined. Yeah. And you're just like, dude, this sucks.
Yeah.
I could have been watching Star Wars, man.
Right. Worst thing that happens to you there is you get your hand cut off.
Right? Or you kiss your sister.
Yeah. It is a galaxy far, far away, so.
both in the same movie, you know?
Yeah.
You kind of have. But yeah, man, I like I said, growing up, Red Dawn scared the Jesus out of me, and that's one. You know, it's one of those things where like I could take monster movies, I could take, you know, war movies or whatever, but man, that realisticness, that, and then I remember, was it Missing in Action 2? Remember that one?
Oh yeah.
Okay. The scene where he like the guy would like pretend like he was going to execute him, and he let it fall on an empty chamber.
Yeah.
And then they got the photojournalist there, and he's like, "Don't worry, the gun's empty."
Right.
And he's like, "Oh, really?" And it's like, boom, blows
Yeah.
his head off. Like, that was one that was just like
Yeah.
up close and personal. I remember me and my cousin sat there and like put that on slow mo, just like,
Yeah.
watching the brain pop out the side of this dude's head. We're like, ah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Cannon's way of trying to recreate the deer hunter scene, right?
Mhm.
That's kind of what that was. But yeah, I mean, and in saying that, I'm glad you kind of brought it up, because look at the just unlimited amount of movies that kind of followed this trail from there on. I mean, we even got one called Invasion USA with Chuck
Yeah.
Norris driving around in a big blue 4-wheel truck, just like the one that's in this movie, you know.
Yep. with those two little compact Uzi pistols.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, man, I wanted one of those so bad. Like,
yeah.
I wanted the
Yeah, all the missing in action flicks, man. Of course, the Rambo stuff. I mean, this was, I don't know, man. This was a part of just American cinema at the time.
it was a big deal, but then, you know, it's like this was one of those where, yeah, it's home turf, because I think so much you know, 'cause again, Charlie Sheen just the year after, you know, 2 years later was in Platoon.
Yeah,
You know, still very young guy, but a whole lot more serious.
yeah,
You know that. So I mean, America's always been obsessed with war, but we had a lot of war movies in the '80s that were pretty bleak.
yeah,
You know, whenever you think about it, like Rambo was very upbeat. You know, but that's only just because they changed the scene of First Blood at the very end.
right, right.
It
Yeah,
was
that's
very bleak before.
that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing is you know you stick with the first one. You know when you want the heavy story, and then the other one's your action adventure stories. You know, where it gets a little crazy.
I watched Rambo not too long ago, and it's funny because just the way movie making works now versus the way it worked then, but with just kind of the over the top, like dun dun dun, you know, soundtrack where he's flying around the helicopter. I'm just like, this is like an Academy Award nominated movie, like for like cinematography or whatever. I'm like, wow, this is
Yeah.
It was huge, but yeah, like I guess nobody wanted to see kids dying anymore, so we amped up Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, because they really kind of took up the mantle.
They ran with it.
Of that whole.
Yeah. Yeah, man. You know, talking about the scene that you stopped and watched in slow-mo or whatever. That was the scene where in Commando for me, when he throws the saw blade and hits that dude in the head. I used to watch that over and over and go, how did they do that? You know, because that, you know, the craziest thing I'd seen before that was obviously Lucio Fulci in City of the Living Dead when they drilled the hole through the guy's head. And I used to watch that over and over and go, there's got to be a way they did this that makes sense, you know. But that saw blade, I was like, how do you do that? How do you throw something at somebody and it hit their head and it knocked part of their head off, but it didn't really do it, you know?
Right.
I used to look at that over and over, man. And there's stuff in this movie, man. There's stuff in Red Dawn that it's it's a bloody flick, man.
It is.
They shoot that dude, one of the guys that's out there doing when they're sightseeing, and he shoots the dude in the back with the arrow, you know, and you can just tell the dude's just like, oh, and you're like, oh crap.
Yeah, he's not. They're not downplaying any of it. Like, he's actually like hurting.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a good day.
Yeah.
But like, dude, like the when Jennifer Grey gets shot by the helicopter.
Yeah.
Like when her poofy jacket pops.
Yeah, the down jacket. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
Like there's so much of, and apparently that was like so violent. Like one of the special edition DVDs has one of those little ding ding dingers to
really?
show you, like, because it's got like 300 acts of violence for 134 minutes or something like that.
Wow.
It's like
it's
really
a bunch.
bad, but
it's a bunch. I mean, when you think about firing squads and all that kind of stuff, and you know, Powers Booth climbing up on top of that tank, and
get on them to shoot at each other.
Yeah, just yeah, crazy.
It's like, yeah, when he gets shot and he like rolls over and he sets the smoke so the other tank will shoot the one that he's on.
Right.
I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, I didn't quite understand it because I didn't realize that was. I thought there was 2 Russian tanks. I didn't realize that it was 2 tanks in a battle.
Right.
And then he's like gets up there to like help him out. Like, no, come over here.
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
They're shooting at bad guys.
Yeah, as a kid, you kind of get confused, even with the planes and stuff, because they have to tell you that's one of ours, just so you'll realize what's going on. But yeah, man, powerhouse flick, man, fantastic.
I'll never do another one like it, man. Not
I agree.
that way.
Yeah.
Well, hey, man, I think we're kind of riding up against the end of the show.
Yeah.
I want to remind everybody to hit us up on all of the social medias, the Facebooks and the Twitters and the Instagrams and the YouTubes. It is about my bedtime, so you're looking like you're about halfway already there.
Yeah. Hey, all you folks out there, if you grew up a fan of Red Dawn, man, share your thoughts on this one, because it to me it's just a standout movie, and I think most people our age was impacted the same way from it. So it'd be kind of cool to hear, what you guys think about it as well, or if you just recently saw it and if you think it holds up, or if you don't think it holds up. I think it's some interesting talking stuff,
I definitely think it holds up. So I'll go up against anybody who says it doesn't.
I think it does too. I think it does too.
Well, rock and roll, man.
Yeah.
Well, we'll stop it there, and we will see you everybody next week.